Hey, g'day, my name's Matt King. I'm the leader of Democracy NZ, a brand new party registered in October of 2022, formed after the protests in Wellington. I left the National Party. I was an MP for one term, 2017 to 2020. I beat Winston to get in. I left National because they'd supported mandates, and I was totally opposed to the mandates, and which was the basis of the Wellington protest. I formed the party. We've got three planks to it: freedom, family, and farming. And for me, the most important part, I guess, was the Bill of Rights. This current government have breached the Bill of Rights on numerous occasions throughout their 6-year period. We've got to combat that. We've got to stop that. We've got to have governments that respect our basic human rights. We're also very much pushing back on the climate change catastrophe narrative that's being hammered down our throats, and New Zealand farmers are being unfairly blamed for that. So they've been threatened with taxation and regulation and being blamed for being the cause of global warming, and out from the science doesn't support it in our view. The New Zealand farmer is the most efficient farmer in the world. They shouldn't be taxed. They should be encouraged to produce. We formed the party. We've got 13 candidates. I'm the party leader and I'm based in Northland. We're going for party vote around the country. The more party votes we get, the more MPs we're going to get into Parliament. I think that we're a party that worth considering, as I have a very good chance of winning the Northland seat. I was the MP from 2017 to 2020. My 2017 election result to my 2020 election result, I actually gained 1,500 more personal votes, despite the party vote being decimated from 47% down to 27%. So the country was not happy with the National Party, and the party vote was decimated, and we lost 24 MPs, but my personal vote went up by 1,500, and I was the only National MP to actually increase my personal vote. Most of the senior MPs that have been MPs for years lost thousands. The other thing that's very important, I think, for people to remember is that there's a split vote in Northland. There's not a red-blue horse race, because we've got an outgoing Labour MP. We've got Shane Jones from New Zealand First running as well. We also have a list MP from ACT, who's actually a current MP in the electorate as well. Plus we have a brand new rookie national candidate. The circumstances are such that a person like me who had a reasonably good reputation, and I've definitely got a hard-working reputation, could come through the middle and win the seat. And if you look at the history of small minor parties coming into Parliament, they've always had a catalyst like the Maori Party in the South Foreshore and Seabed as an issue, and they've always had a former or current MP as their leader. And obviously I'm a former MP, so we tick the criteria. That's the history of MMP. The other thing I want to mention is this: except for the exception of 2020 election, the incoming government has needed two coalition partners to form a government. And that's even during the popular John Key national government era. They needed two smaller parties to form a coalition with. My view is, if the National and ACT parties need a third coalition partner, if it's New Democracy NZ, it'll be a strong, stable government. If it's New Zealand First, it will be the coalition of chaos without a doubt. So that's where I'm thinking. That's the thinking, and that's why I think the support of Northlanders decide to support me and vote me in as their MP. I'm a +1 on the change of government side. There's no downside to candidate voting for me. And for that reason, I have a good chance of being the successful, and therefore the party vote around the country will not be a wasted vote. Every party vote we get will translate into extra MPs in Democracy NZ, and we will not be after the baubles of office, the ministerial roles, the money, the slush funds, any of that. We just want a government that's strong and stable, that respects our human rights, that fights for farmers, and is also very supportive of families and pushing back against the gender ideology and the indoctrination on education that's going on within our schools at the moment. We're very tolerant and empathetic for different lifestyles, but we're very strong and supportive of women and are protecting our children. And that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, and that's why I'm going again to be back into Parliament to try and make a difference. And I think this election is the most important in our country's history. And so I ask people to vote strategically and vote carefully. So in terms of farming, New Zealand farmers are the most efficient producers of food in the world. They are the lowest emission producers of food. That is a actual fact. So the current government have asked us to reduce our emissions to be environmentally friendly and save the planet. But the thinking behind that is flawed, because if you tax and reduce the production of your most efficient food producers, a less efficient producer in another part of the world will pick up the slack and overall emissions will go up. So that's an actual reality of the current government policy. So it's virtue signaling. We should actually encourage New Zealand farmers to produce as much as they can sustainably to protect the environment. And if we do that, that will drive down overall world emissions and, in theory, save the planet. But we also don't believe at Democracy NZ that there is a climate change catastrophe narrative. We don't accept that. If you look over the actual science, sea level hasn't risen noticeably in the last 100 years. Temperature has only increased half a degree in 100 years, and most of that happened pre-war. So we believe money should be poured into climate adaptation, building resilient roads and bridges, not trying to reduce our already low emissions. In terms of education, we know what a woman is, and we believe in safe spaces for women, changing rooms. Biological men shouldn't be competing against women in sports. We believe in the children not having this gender ideology pushed down their throats from a young age. That should be in the teenage years. So a back to basics approach for education, and concentrate on having our kids leaving school with the basic skills of reading, writing, and arithmetic, rather than pushing all this other stuff on them. But we still believe that there's some ideologies being pushed down our throats that no one voted for, and there's the government that don't have a mandate to do it, and they let kids be kids. It's one of our sayings, let kids be kids. We should be indexing our tax brackets indexed to inflation, so that at the moment we've got people in what was a middle income, they've risen to the higher income and they're paying. Well, people that are on a smaller middle income that are now paying the highest tax rate, and because the tax rates haven't been adjusted. So that's one thing. The second thing we'd like to do is maybe have between $10,000 and $15,000 per annum tax-free. So that helps low income and also superannuitants on a fixed income. That's the other thing. I think GST is a good tax to have. We don't believe in some of the taxation being proposed by some of the minor parties, like the 1% transaction tax. We don't believe that's workable. I think in terms of taxation, we need a government that is wasteful spending has to be nipped in the bud. We've got a lot of wasteful spending going on that's incredible when you look at it. If you look at the list of expenditure in this current government, it's shamefully wasteful, and they've used the COVID fund to fund things that were actually nice to have from the Labour government, but I think were terribly wasteful, and we'll be paying those debts back for generations. So I think there's no competition in the building industry, so materials are through the roof. If you compare our prices with even Australia, we're paying an incredibly inflated price for just basic building materials. So that's one thing. But I think the biggest contributor to is the equivalent of the Resource Management Act. It's just too expensive to build, and the regulation around it. I guess the money that you have to expend before you even pour one footing, is incredible. RMA reform, so they can free up more land and allow building to go ahead and developers to develop and meet the demand, has been a bugbear for forever, and that's one of the reasons that I am told that it's very expensive to build houses, because to bring houses price down, we've just got to have more supply. There's a massive demand and there's not enough supply, so we've got to address that. So whatever we can do to address the supply end, we'll bring the prices down and get people into homes. What I want to say to everyone is that do not listen to the major parties talking about a wasted vote. In some aspects, in some minor parties that have no hope of winning a seat and are nowhere near the 5%, that is true. But in a case like ours, and if you take ACT in 2017, they had 5.5% of the party vote, but David Seymour won a seat and he got into Parliament, and now he's going gangbusters. Same with the Maori Party in 2020. They had 1.2% of the party vote, but they won a seat and they got 2 MPs, and they may even get 3 or 4 this time. So for us at Democracy NZ, we tick the box. We've got a good chance of winning the Northland seat. Therefore, any party vote from Aucklanders and around the country for our candidates in Kelston and in Port Waikato, even if we don't have a candidate, every party vote that comes our way, because we've got a good chance of winning Northland, it will not be a wasted vote. And it will translate into more MPs for us to take to Wellington, form a strong, stable government, and get our country back on track, and our debt down, and our doors open, and our attack our cost of living. And it can only be good for Kiwis.